Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Michael McBride, and I'm joined by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and with me today, and feels like every day.
Pretty much every day.
Sometimes I should say better or worse, but
yeah,
I got one of those on the other direction here. The other man joining us in this podcast. Anyway, Dr. Dan Kessler, welcome. Thank you for being with me and being my partner in these things.
Yeah, one of the things about the business stuff is there's like no avoiding your business partner, and you end up talking to each other just about every day. So, but let me say it differently. This podcast is really a bright spot in my weekend recording this, because we get to do what's the most enjoyable part of our business, which is kind of puzzling through difficult situations. And so I really look forward to this. We record this podcast on Sunday mornings. There's a little insight into what we're doing here, and this is a terrific part of the week. So,
yeah,
Michael, you always bring us something interesting.
Yeah,
fire away, man.
Well, before we get to the topic at hand, for any of the newbies out there, if this is your first episode and you don't know what Am I the Asshole is, in short, I find a post that somebody has suggested a scenario, said, hey, this thing happened. And then their question is, who's the asshole here? That's what we're going to help determine. And if you're also new, you should definitely stick around through the credits. We always have a bonus conversation after that. So neither Dan nor Gayle have read this or seen it or any of that stuff. So let's go. Today's prompt is, am I the asshole for telling my husband that if he pays me my hourly rate, I will do more housework?
Yes. So, I mean, I have to assume I like that sometimes Michael, my apology. Well, I'm not going to apologize. I don't mean it. I like just jumping in here and making a few like book by its cover comments.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, I think it sounds like she's trying to make a point here. Hopefully
she's not asking. It's a bit of a dickish comment, but I kind of get where she might be coming from.
Ooh.
Yeah. So just wait.
Yeah, I suspect my wife might get it too. All right, let's hear the rest of this, Michael, before I just incriminate myself too much.
So this is the rest of it. So it starts off and it says, I am a steam fitter, which was something I did not know. So steam fitter is slightly different than a pipe fitter. Steam fitter deals with high pressure pipes, essentially. So they do kind of similar things. Anyway, that was what I looked up. But I've been at it for a while now, and I am in supervision. With bonuses and incentives, but not counting benefits, I earn over $100 an hour. I also work out of town. I started doing that once the kids were old enough to take care of themselves with their dad at home. So when my youngest was in middle school and the oldest was a junior in high school. It's great. Our retirement savings are piling up, and we have been able to splurge on the kids and ourselves. My husband is upset, however, that because I decided to pay for a cleaning lady. He and I discussed it, and we agreed that him and the kids don't do a great job of keeping the house clean and tidy while I'm away. I hated coming home to a mess. It caused a few fights, and because of that, it was like they expected me to come home and clean up after them. Having the cleaning lady is fantastic. I come home to a clean house and I am happier. My kids have more time to study and do extracurriculars. They still have chores and they are still expected to clean up after themselves, but we have the money and this is a luxury that I want. My husband came to me the last time I was home and said we should cut back on the service when I'm home, that I should be doing more of the housework. He thinks that we are wasting money. I said that I work 14 days in a row and those are 13-hour days. Yes, it's mostly paperwork, but his job as a teacher isn't much more physically challenging. I said that I could offer him two options. One, if he wanted, we could completely get rid of the service and him and the kids could make sure the house was in good shape for when I got home. Or two, he could pay me my hourly rate to do the extra housework while I'm on my days off. He was upset with me and says that I'm being financially manipulative. I think if he and the kids actually did what they're supposed to when I'm away, this wouldn't be an issue. I also think we can afford it, so what's the big deal? who's being the asshole here?
So right off the bat, I'm jumping in here and saying, this is the classic difference, not right and wrong. Well, so first off, she's not an asshole, and she's making a point here, and I'm with her. But moving away from that for a second, we're constantly working on this question of like, when a couple has a difference, and here they are differently valuing the money spent on a cleaning service.
Absolutely.
I want to start with that whenever working with a couple. I want to start with like, let's talk about how you're valuing the money spent on the service versus how you're valuing the money spent on the service, because neither one of you is necessarily wrong about the money end of it.
Right,
now,
but
you
they're
absolutely have a
also
right and a wrong here.
valuing the cleanliness of the house and when that's
Right.
getting cleaned. So there are really
Absolutely.
two fundamental differences here that we would be taking on.
Right. The different, I like that too. They're differently valuing the what a clean house means and what it looks like, what's important.
What it looks
They're
like too, maybe.
Right. And they're differently. Oh yeah. There many times that my wife will ask me, did you clean the kitchen? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. And then she'll go down and she'll clean the kitchen. And I'm like, but it was clean. And she'll be like, I thought you cleaned the kitchen. And I'm like, I did. And it's not clean. And we have a different perspective on what a clean kitchen looks like. I'm working on it. I really am. If you're listening, honey, I'm really working on it. I'm not there yet.
Michael's laughing because similar conversation.
Yeah.
Except I'm just going to diverge for just a moment. There's always something left behind.
Ooh.
Like I cleaned the kitchen. I'll be, but this plate is still out. I don't understand.
Yeah. Have you've been talking to my wife, haven't you?
No.
Yeah. Anyway,
these are common differences. We talk about this more not to make this about ourselves, but to show how common these differences are between couples, even really loving, healthy couples.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and it's learning, and so much of the couples work we do is learning how to tolerate the differences and acknowledge that you value this and I value this, and then how do we bring those values together in a way? Because when our values differ, we tend to be like, no, you're wrong because you don't value this. No, you're wrong because you don't value this. And getting a couple to understand that there are differences.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I think this does smack a little of the, if you know this, then you have to get your nose pierced conversation from a couple of episodes ago. If you didn't hear it, go back and listen, because what's not reasonable here is the response, pay me my hourly wage, because really and truly at the end of the day, we have a household income here. Whether you have separate checking accounts or how this works, there's a pot of money. And now we're just offering to shuffle that around as opposed to paying a house cleaner, which is really a different scenario. So we're not comparing apples and oranges in that. I think she is trying to make a point, and it's sort of an ineffective communication technique between the couple around this difference, if that, then pay me my wage. So she's trying to make a point, but it's not landing well, and it's distracting from the issue at hand, which is the difference. She's making it more about the money and less about her time. I mean, the reality is she's also offered an option that I don't think is acceptable. And I want to talk to couples about that as well, as especially in parenting, but in couple work in general too. Don't ever offer an option that's not actually an option that you could accept. So if he says, great, I will absolutely, let's set up an account. We're going to pay you, your hourly wage for everything you do in the housework, she's going to go, oh shit, what did I just do? What did I offer? Because now I'm working these 16-hour days times 14 days, and now I'm coming home and doing all of this. She is going to pile resentment, and she's not going to want to do it. It's not really an option, so it should never.
No, it's not. And she's trying to make a point, and I have multiple feelings about that. First off, I like the point she's making to some degree. Like our time is valuable. And I value my time with my family, and I value my time, and my work time is valued by the company I work for, who pays me very handsomely for the work I do. My time at home is valuable to me, and it's valuable enough to me to spend some of that money that my workplace has given me in order to so that I don't spend the time I could be spending either relaxing or with my family cleaning. Her way of doing it is a bit of a power move, and I'm trying in my head to like flip the genders around. I'm assuming we're assuming she's female. And maybe
She
because of
is.
the
Yeah.
whole, oh, she identifies. Okay. So, if I flip this around, I like it angry if I flip it around, because then it's the classic paradigm of the guy who makes the sort of historically classic paradigm of the guy who makes more money, who holds that over his partner's head by going, I'm making enough money that you should be, and so I get angry when I flip the genders, less so than I do with the genders where they are, because like we also have this historically probably accurate perspective of him expecting her to do all the cleaning and her being dissatisfied with the work that he's doing. And again, so heteronormative. I apologize
I'm
for
not
this.
as angry as you are
I get angry when I
because
flip the genders. I don't get
no,
angry
no,
when I don't flip the genders.
I'm not angry either way. Exactly. I don't like how they're going about this, but the reality
Yeah.
seems like here we've got one partner who is away 14 days at a time and then coming home, and we have another partner who's doing a lot of primary parenting and household things. But there is some level of expectation that when your partner is away, you've got a bit of a lift going on there
Right.
that is different. And there are expectations that perhaps you keep up with the house in a more aggressive way because of this imbalance of time at home, and regardless of gender.
Right. To be clear, he's way more wrong than she is.
Okay.
No,
Yes.
be absolutely clear here.
And we are also
he's
assuming he works outside the home. But if he doesn't work
He
outside the
does.
home,
No, he does. He's a teacher.
oh, that's right. Yes.
He's a teacher. So
Yeah.
I am more upset with him than with her.
Yes.
But I'm still I still really like, okay, angry is too strong a word there, because I'm not really angry at anyone here.
Annoyed.
I think this is another one of those, like, yeah, it's more annoying that like I mean, I would be angry if a guy was holding the money over the wife's head. That would make me angry. But it's annoying because this is a difference.
Yeah.
I value being able to put that money aside for a cleaning person. Instead of spending on a cleaning person, you value the time with family. Let's talk about the difference in values and come to a place where we can like, we're working together to come to a solution, rather than these kind of ultimatums back and forth.
I would love to also explore what he would prefer to do with that money being spent on the house cleaner. If there's a difference there, and what is he worried about in terms of, letting this money go and not and saving it or putting it somewhere else. Like, what does that mean to him? Maybe that means that they are compromising on travel together or something like that. We don't know.
These differences come up like all the time in couples. Like, I value I value the time, the not having to cook dinner, so I want to order a pizza, have it delivered. Well, yeah, but I can make a pizza for $5, and if I have it delivered, it's going to be, I don't even know, because I don't have pizza delivered. I hate to admit, but $30.
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
guessing. So, like, I value that, and the other person said, "Well, I value the time. I get a pizza delivered. I can spend the whole afternoon with the family, and I had that pizza delivered, and the extra $25 is worth the hour it took me to do the pizza, and maybe another half hour to clean up. That hour and a half is way worth $25." And the person going, "Well, I value it." I could totally see that both being right.
Yeah. And it's hard to get folks to sometimes move in the direction of the other, even if you explore these differences and land on it and go, yeah, but I still want to spend the money. Yeah, I still want to spend the time. And now I want to pull a Kessler for a moment, and I just want to reimagine the facts. And I'm going to reimagine the facts where he says to her, honey, you are on the road so much, and I really am so grateful for the time that you're able to spend with us and be at home. Please don't worry about the house cleaning. I want to make sure that it's clean when you get home. And I want to make sure that you don't ever have to do it when you're home until you want to, right? And that he hires the house cleaner. He's got it all arranged. He's picked this house cleaner out and does all the payments. It just does it for her, because there's sort of even just a mental load in organizing and scheduling. And I can totally imagine in this scenario, she's got this house cleaner coming in. She's scheduled it on the calendar. She's done the entire mental load of this while she's away. And he's just sitting there. And I want it the other way around for her.
I love that. Wouldn't that be delightful if he was able to find his place to where she is and say, this is so valuable to you, honey. Like, this means so much to you. I know you're getting home Friday evening. I will plan on having a cleaning person come Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's spotless. And then they'll come once while you're gone or while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if he's not worried about the messy house, then the cleaning person can come Friday morning before she gets back, and you know, maybe we save 1 week or whatever. But like, I totally see the value in your reimagining, where they
Yeah.
come together and say, yeah, this is meaningful enough for us to find
Yeah.
a happy place with it. And all the time with couples, we're trying to find that spot. Like, the challenge is finding the spot where they're not compromising, where each person is giving in and losing something, but they're
Yeah.
finding a win-win where each person feels like they gained. Because in the end, it's the two of them against the world.
Of course.
So how do they
And
stop competing?
and you have to ask, is this hill worth dying on? Am I going to take down my relationship over this particular issue?
Yeah,
Is it worth it?
yeah. I I'm a little annoyed about the, like, because we both know that the offer is disingenuous.
Yes.
You know, um, I'm a little annoyed about that, but
Mhm.
her point is meaningful.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I am working my ass off, spending 2 weeks away from my family out of every month. The last thing I want to do is clean this fucking house when I get home. And I'm imagining her. I'm also like picturing in my mind's eye, like her driving back from her lengthy time away, going, "Oh my God, what is the house going to look like when I get home?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm going to get
And
home. It's going to be
I
a
will say in here
like,
too, I'm really glad she said the kids are still doing chores.
yeah.
We're not, sweeping in and then just making, no house effort whatsoever. She's still
Mm.
expecting the children in the house to do some basic stuff so
Yeah.
that they don't lose out on the opportunity to clean up
Hmm.
after themselves and learn some of those maintenance things. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm more frustrated, and this comes up all the time in these discussions. I'm more frustrated that the couple didn't sit down and say, we have a problem. We have a
Mhm.
difference of opinion about how to spend our money. We have a difference of opinion about what is clean and what's not clean. How do we manage this difference in
Mhm.
a way where both of us get our needs met or our desires met? You know, and we're able to have a really happy house. And
Yeah.
there are opportunities here, and as this couple, it sounds like the more they talked, the more entrenched they became,
Mhm.
and like, this is the way it should be done, and the more angry they got that the other one wasn't doing it the way they should do it.
Yeah.
Really frustrating.
I
Really
think we're
frustrating.
sort of at the place where we get to drop our determination. Is
I
that?
was just going to ask. I mean, I have a lot of interesting things from the internet and my own kind
Oh,
of thoughts,
good.
but before I do that, where do you guys stand then? If you push comes to shove, what do you say?
Dan?
um I think everyone's mildly dickish here. Nobody is an asshole. Nobody is a terrible person, but they're not working together. And they're
Mhm.
not, I mean, the kids are great. Thanks for doing the chores. So I would say both husband and wife here are being mildly dickish in that they're not willing to hear the other's perspective and try
Mhm.
to work towards something really meaningful, and bring them together. So
So
that's what
mildly dickish from Kessler.
mildly
I'm
dick.
gonna go on
Everyone's
my
mildly
slider
dickish.
scale. I like this slider scale of assholeness.
Yeah.
And I find her to be kind of like at a 2 or a 3, and the hubby to be at like a 6 or a 7. It's not like screaming
Ooh,
at me like capital A asshole,
you made him
but
more
he
of a
is
dick than her.
he's more of a dick than her. And
Oh,
yet because of the disingenuousness, I can't say that. Wow, of the offer, I find that to be probably the most irritating part of this, and so I
mm,
would put her at maybe like that 3. It's a problem. She shouldn't have communicated that way about it, even if it's a perpetual issue for them. But boy, his response is, it's not okay. He really
well,
needs to be more supportive of how to get the housework done. Quite frankly, if he doesn't want the house cleaner, then man up and do the fucking chores and just get them
well,
done.
right, yeah,
Don't expect the
me,
wife gone for 2 weeks to do it.
let me play devil's ad. Let me play husband's advocate here for a second,
Sure.
with apologies for the anyway. I spend 2 weeks while you're gone. I'm managing my job. I'm managing our children. I'm managing the house. I'm a single dad for this whole 2 weeks. The house isn't spotless. I work my butt off. Teachers don't make a ton of money. And now I come home and you're not valuing my time, my effort, my all the things I do because the house isn't as clean as you would like it to be when you come through after being gone for 2 weeks. Like how
The
unfair
house
you're
cleaner.
being to me.
I think it's one.
I don't agree with him,
other.
by the way. I don't
I
agree with
think
him.
it's one or the other, regardless of gender flip. I think that it is not an unrealistic ask to say, "Hey, I want the house just in order right when I get home."
Well, what if it's from his perspective, it is in order. From his perspective, the house is fine, and she's coming home and having these higher expectations that he doesn't find to be that he finds to be problematic.
And there's a reasonable solution here, which is that's fine. I'm not asking you to do more. I am just simply saying I'm going to come in and have a professional take care of this so that neither of us have to worry about it. And we don't have to argue about the fact that you're not doing it to my specifications.
Now, for the record, I don't necessarily agree with him. I'm just trying to find a place because I think where I put them more or less equal
Right.
on this. I put them in like they're both being kind of mildly dickish. I don't put either one of them in a worse position. But I want to be a little bit understanding because I've and again the genders are usually flipped, but I've seen situations where moms are like stay-at-home moms. They're not stay-at-home moms. They're working moms. Husband has gone on a work trip, comes home and complains, and she's like, I've spent the last week taking care of our kids and working and doing this. Why are you complaining when you come home?
In that scenario,
and I get that. Like I
get a house cleaner, and she goes, "Oh, thank you. That would help so much." Because that's how that more likely play out.
Yeah. Shit. You're right. All right.
I think I'm absolutely right.
No, you're right.
I think because one has a higher standard, we really need to create, this is an investment in your relationship. This isn't about right or wrong. This is my spouse wants this tidier than I care about because it is not that important to me to live in the state of mess versus the state of clean. I acquiesce on the point. I allow for that expenditure. And you do it. It's an investment.
I give.
Absolutely wrong.
I still think they're both equally mildly dickish. Michael, what did the internet say?
Well, it fell into two camps. And I have to admit, like when I read this initially, I was totally on the side of the wife. I was like, this is outrageous. But the internet, kind of like Dan, wore me down a little bit and brought me to more and everybody sucks or everyone's mildly dickish, whatever you want to call it exactly. But so the overwhelming response from the people who said you're not the asshole was this person encapsulated it pretty neatly. I'm sorry, you both work demanding jobs. Yours sometimes requires travel, but you should be taking care of the housework. Why? Because you're the wife? For fuck's sake, it's 2024. You're both adults. You co-manage the household. If he wants the place cleaner, he can either help clean or pay for the cleaner. Pretending his wife is a maid servant is not an option. You're not the asshole. Like that's
really well said.
That's I'm having a hard time disagreeing with that.
But MacBride says that he's got to turn down the other MacBride.
Then the everybody sucks things were essentially how she presented it and looking into more what she said. So one of the underlying assumptions is that her job is some way more valued than his because she she seems to be, to Dan's point, saying like, you're teaching and you have this time and you're at home with the kids and like you do a shit job cleaning the house. Like what the fuck? Like just do a better job. And then they said you both need to essentially sit down and come to a better understanding of what clean looks like. And this is a conversation we've had with our kids. Like, what does done look like? Done to me, clean or whatever, is different than Gayle's perspective or either of our children's perspective. And so we had to have a conversation of like, when we talk about cleaning your room, this is what we mean. And so like having that conversation, I think to your guys' point, would be a much better fruitful use of time to figure out like, what does it actually look like? And then the one that really kind of, that I feel like everybody missed online, which was like in the scenario that you guys talked about, where she actually says, I'm trying to think of how it went, but anyway, like if he actually took her up on paying her hourly wage for cleaning the house the way she thinks it is realistic, how would that work? Like, do they have separate accounts? And if they have separate accounts, then why doesn't she just pay for the house cleaner out of her separate account? And like there's this whole conversation about like separate accounts and accounting and all of those things. But
And that never works out because at the end of the day, most states recognize that, there's sort of this shared financial resource in couples, and it
Right.
really doesn't ever parse out as one person's or versus another's. It really is a shared pot, no matter how you slice it. Anyway,
Yeah.
go on.
and then the only other thing I was going to add was really, it reminded me of a couple of the other podcasts. You mentioned the nose rings one, the unrealistic ask,
Mhm.
for sure. The other one it kind of reminded me was, why didn't you make me dinner when you were homesick? Like
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that did.
like
I
you're
like that one.
there, you're in this space, you should also be able to do this thing,
Mhm.
and in that case, I would say the husband is kind of in that spot of, like Dan said, dude, I'm keeping the house going for 2 weeks while you're gone.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
like, so it really feels like you
It-
guys said, they need to talk about how they're going to spend their money, how they value their
yeah.
time. And so,
Mhm.
I think we need to call this the disingenuous ask.
yes.
When people, in order to make a point, create a disingenuous ask that they know is ridiculous, like if you're going to come over to my house, you have to get a nose ring because I got a nose because you got mad at me, or you, and this one, like, you have to pay me. She's not going to set up a separate account into which she deposits $500 because she spent 4 hours of cleaning at 120, $2 an hour, and it's, and they're going to do the math, and then she's going to use that money for I don't know, yeah, whatever. I think it's a disingenuous ask, and those are not productive. But with a little bit of a tweak, it's not a terrible, like, hey, this is I make this much, you make I do make this much, and I make that much. Like I could be home, but this is a lifestyle decision we've made together. And
Hopefully.
since we've made this life, yeah, hopefully, yes. We're making an assumption, yeah.
Mhm.
Since we've made this lifestyle decision together, let's include this in our calculations,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that we're
It's like the
both
cost
happy.
of, a parking garage when you work downtown. You need to have a place to park, and that's an added expense to working where you do. This
Yeah,
happens to be a different kind of expense in that relationship. And
right. And including these lifestyle expenses is important.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. All right.
what else did the internet? Anything else the internet said of interest? Michael, you're muted.
Apparently, I can't unmute myself.
Yeah, there's a
Sorry.
button. There's
You
a
got
button.
locked in the room.
It was fighting me. Yeah, no, the other kind of contingent of the people who said you're not the asshole is, they really struggled to see any perspective of the husband, which I really
Mhm.
appreciated, Dan, that you did a good job of bringing that to light and kind of painting what that perspective looks like.
Mhm.
The other people basically said like, you make money, you want time with your family. He doesn't want to do the cleaning. This seems, and you can afford it. Like, what's the big deal?
Mhm.
Like, we don't see what the problem is. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
no, I think we hit on most of the points. So,
Awesome.
um, thank you both for another riveting debate, a glimpse into the collective conscious of the internet. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black or white.
Oh, geez. Truth is stranger than fiction. And man, you can't make this stuff up. So thank you to the internet for providing us yet another entertaining scenario.
And I'm looking forward to next week when we tackle another one of these, and stick around for our bonus conversation. I know Michael's supposed to say that, but fuck, I'm saying it anyway. Stick around because I have a question for my colleague that's couples related and money related. There you go.
Excellent. Well, everybody else, please do follow and share Veritas Views on any of the podcast platforms with your neighbors and friends. As Dan said, stick around for the bonus conversation. And yeah, see you on the other side of the credits.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here's that bonus conversation.
All right,
I'm
Gayle.
nervous.
Spurred on by this, the discussion about money, and this is a couple that, like many couples, where they have very disparate incomes. And some couples put all their money in one pot.
Yep.
Doesn't matter who earns, all the money is in one pot and they spend it. Other couples have different financial arrangements. And officially, I always say, like, whatever works for you as a couple, you should do. Whatever the two of you agree on, whatever works for you as a couple. But I want to know, and I suspect officially you say the same thing to couples.
Of course.
But what does Gayle MacBride think about the right way to handle money in a coupled relationship?
Ooh, wow. It's like you know me. I absolutely have an opinion about this, but it's in part because, so when we got married, the host and I,
are you going to give a host? Have you cleared with the host the story?
He knows. He's fine. We in getting married, we talked about how are we going to deal with finances, and you often can't help but look to the role models of people that you were raised with, right? In this case, we both grew up in two-parent households, and both parents were present, so we didn't have an opportunity to see one parent then repartner and shuffle that around. Like, we just had our parents as role models, and it was really striking how different our parents handled money, but neither of us walked away and went, that feels like what I want to do. So, my parents are, full disclosure, they're gonna be 80 this year. So they're born in 1924. They've got a particular mindset. My dad took care of certain bills and these are the ones. And my mom, her income, which she did work outside the home, did groceries and gifts and things like that. It was very cis-het, very traditional, conservative kind of split. It was fine, but I always thought, well, that's kind of not right because it really is just one pot. And Michael's parents were a little bit different. Mom works outside of the home less. Dad was the primary earner, but his mom does all the bill paying, and it goes into a pot, and then they just have sort of a different relationship to it. It's a little more, maybe less transparent than Michael and I have been. So we looked at that one, but what do we want to do? And so we ultimately, and I think from my perspective in the world, and this is what you're asking, is it is a pot. It is one pot. And at the end of the day, all of the bills are coming out of what you are collectively making. And there has been a time where my husband was not bringing in an outside income, or very, very small outside income when he was adjunct teaching. And that's a really hard, almost like gig work, really. And I was the higher income earner. And so creating intentional discussions around that and the contributions that he was making that were non-financial needed to be a part of that financial discussion, because if I had come in with my money, it would have eroded our relationship pretty quickly. And during that time, his contributions were valuable. But they were very different contributions. They were non-financial, but had financial implications, because that meant he was taking care of our children during the summer, and we didn't incur a daycare expense. That does translate pretty directly and pretty quickly to that financial nest egg. So
what I like, my perspective is for both members of the couple. So this is what Dan says, not what Dr. Kessler says. I want the couple to pretend as if they have there's one earning amount.
Yes.
And nobody is responsible for a greater or lesser amount. So that whatever they make goes into that one pot, and they're completely agnostic as to who makes what. And it doesn't matter at all. And they each bring in whatever they can in whatever way, but there's no like, oh, this is my money, this is your money. This is what Dan thinks is the ideal way of doing it, not necessarily what I don't advocate for this, because I think when couples work out something different, I'm fine with that. And then when it comes to whatever work around the house, they have the same exact conversation. It's completely different from the money conversation because it's a time conversation. Your job has a greater demand of this. I don't, in our day job, Gail, you and I don't have, there's no like, if you take an hour off, it's an hour's less pay.
Right.
And so for my wife and I, where she has annual leave and sick leave and can take time, she does most all the doctor visits with the kids, not because but just because she can take sick leave and I can't.
Yeah.
And so we make those determinations, and I think the couples should make those determinations around what time they have and what they value, and have that conversation completely separate from the dollars.
And I don't know that I can always exactly be separate, but I hear you. I mean, I think Dan's way makes a lot of sense. But, it was really important to me to value my husband's time when he was providing care.
No, absolutely.
The day.
But it's separate from the dollars. The time,
it is.
He has more.
It helped to give context and understanding to the contributions that were being made, and I suppose translated most easily into the financial.
Right.
If you weren't able to do this.
Right. He has time available. You don't have time available. So he carries some more of the time. You have money available. He has less of money, but but essentially, like, it doesn't matter who's, like, I really believe that we can get to that place where nobody even, like, it doesn't matter. It's one pot of money. Now, I will say, just for the reference, if you come in and you come to my office and you have a totally different way of doing it, I completely respect that.
Well, we're talking about Dan and Gayle and not Dr. Kessler and Dr. MacBride.
Exactly.
Dr. Kessler and Dr. MacBride take an agnostic perspective. Gayle and Dan have probably fairly similarly set up households. I think, and that's part of what I think makes us friends and makes us work. And you and I have always had transparent financial discussions, even between the two of us, which is what makes us, able to, I think, have a business together and communicate those things. And that's a different kind of relationship, but nonetheless, a very close one when you start attaching, dollars and profession and
to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really.
So.
All right, cool.
I think it's important to have that conversation in couples, and I think it needs to be clear, and I think it needs to be revisited over time, and it needs to be lovingly negotiated in terms of, because this is never going to be 50-50 ever in time, dollars.
In my own life, as I arc towards retirement, likely before my wife does, how do you then, and that'll be an interesting topic of conversation if we can find something, like, how do you manage when that shifts over time and different values may be at play around dollars as retirement changes income. Anyway, we'll get into that another time.
But again, you readdress it time and time again, and you do it lovingly, and you do it out of care and respect for your partner.
Yep.
It's not a one and done.
Yeah.
All right, take us out, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tune in again next week for another fascinating Am I the Asshole debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.